David Brewster here with a new episode of Scales and Tales, and this is Mastering Harmonic Minor. And it was last year when I did an overview series of the modes from the major scale, and I had lots of viewers, asking for the modes from the harmonic minor scale, and we're about to hit that head on. But before we tackle, harmonic minor scale modes and dive in the deep end of the scale, I definitely wanted to give this kind of primer or overview as far as really understanding and mastering this, very popular and extremely useful scale too. And definitely harmonic minor goes all the way back to people like Mozart and Paganini. You can definitely hear it in classical music. You can hear it in jazz music. You can hear it in pop and metal and shred guitar. Definitely, if your last name's Malmsteen, then you definitely know what the scale is. So we're going to basically unlock it. We're going to map it all over the fretboard. You're going to start getting used to positions and really thinking about this really important scale. So here we go. Now, I've worked on this scale with lots of students over the years, and the main confusing area, it seems, is just moving away from pentatonic scales and regular major and minor scales into harmonic minor, because the fingerings are kind of different. There's some stretching, there's some intervallic, oddities within the scale that you don't find in pentatonic or natural minor or the major scale or whatever. And, I could basically just steer you toward a fretboard diagram and say, okay, learn the scale using a fretboard diagram. But that's really hard. It's also intimidating because it's giving you everything in the kitchen sink, every note. And trying to work using a filled in fretboard diagram is very confusing because you'll see something like this. So I created an entire episode of Scales and Tales last October devoted to the harmonic minor scale, and I definitely recommend all viewers, seek out that lesson. You could actually do a channel search here on my channel. Just type in harmonic minor and it'll bring up every lesson I've made, related to the scale. So this episode's in the key of A minor. The lesson that I made back in October is also in A minor, so you can kind of use both of these lessons together. So what we're going to do here is we're going to map out the fretboard, right? It's in the key of A. And we're going to basically start with the open strings and then work our way up to about the 12th fret. Once you learn, where A is between this area, from the open strings to the 12th fret, then you can transfer all that information to this higher reach on the fretboard because it just repeats, up here. So the lowest A we can play is the open A string. So let's start there. Then move our way up and locate A. There's an A on the 2nd fret on the G. Move our way up. The 5th fret low E and high E is both A. They kind of mirror each other there. The 7th fret on the D is an A. 10th fret on the B is an A. And the 12th fret on the A is an A. So right there, that's every A you can play from the open strings to the 12th fret. And here's a fretboard diagram kind of showing you what I just did. So an A natural minor scale, and we've talked about Aeolian or the natural minor scale a lot on this channel. That's just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's just the alphabet. It's really easy to learn, really easy to kind of, visualize or see, because that's all it is. It's the white keys on a piano starting on A, right? So if we basically, reveal what harmonic minor is, it's that scale with a raised 7th. So instead of G, it's going to have a G sharp, like this. And that's the only note that's different between this and Aeolian or the natural minor scale. So that G sharp is essential. Like, obviously you need to know what the root is, so I guess that would be the most important note. But then that G sharp is definitely the second most important note, because it defines the scale. So once you know where all those A's are, now we're going to start locating G sharp. So if we think back to that open A string, we can't really, play a G sharp with an open string. I mean, we could fret it right there if we wanted to, but just remember that open A, we don't really have a way to go below that, with open strings. So let's bypass that open A string, remember it, but let's grab this A, and now, realize there's a G sharp right beside it, right? Go to the next A right here, the high E, on the D string right there, and we're just basically remembering where those A's are, but then now we're locating that G sharp. So as far as that first, half of the fretboard, you can do it here, here, right here, up here, and here. And we're just thinking G sharp moving to that A root note, right? And that's basically like kind of the next step. So here's a fretboard diagram showing like where the A's are, but also where those G sharps are. We've done this in other episodes on this channel, but I don't think we've done it with harmonic minor. Let's learn it on one string. That way you can really see like the leaps and the spaces between the notes, and obviously the notes themselves too. So it's basically A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, and then A. So on the A string, that would look and sound like this. Right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A. And there's that very distinct, harmonic minor sound and tonality. Right? But played on one string like that. And like I said, you can really see, obviously, that big space too, right? Like this. Everything should seem somewhat familiar right there, and then here, but it's right there, that G sharp. And that's what's giving harmonic minor that very distinct tonality and sound. It's that big leap or that big gap. Now, once we kind of arrange that on a single string, you can start doing like some Van Halen tapping and stuff just to really, drive it home. You can do stuff like that. And there I'm literally just tapping that A and then cruising my way up that scale on the A string, just like that. Right? And then we can start finding the scale in positions instead of just on a single string like we just did. So we're going to start really low with that open A string, and we can uncover like a 1 octave fingering for A harmonic minor right here. Right, there's your A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A. And we're using some open strings down there too. Like that. Right? We could also fret that and use, instead of using the open D string, we could fret that D. And that's going to involve like a big stretch right there. So you could definitely experiment with that, but then remember that kind of open string, kind of 2-finger, kind of fingering. Like that. You could also arrange it. You could also arrange it where you're using more than just 2 fingers. But that's the first position right there. Now let's start on that A, since that was the second A that we located. Let's find the scale again right here. Because there's your A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A. Right? Let's move up here. Grab it and do it right there. And there's your A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A. Now the high E string doesn't really allow us to kind of move over to a higher string. I mean, we could definitely cruise up on a single string if we want. But we did kind of technically include those notes from the high E string right there. So I don't want you to think I was leaving this out. I mean, you could do like that and you could tap your way up there or something if you really wanted to play it off the high E string. But let's move on to the D and now grab the A note right there and do... And there it is right there. And then moving up, we could actually do it like this. Kind of incorporating some of that tapping again, because there's your A, B, C, D, E, F, and then I tap slid G sharp to A. Like that. And we could also do it again right there, starting on that A. So we're basically just mapping the fretboard and locating those little 1 octave fragments like that. So now that we have 1 octave fragments of A harmonic minor, we can start combining some of those shapes together and start creating 2 octave fragments. So instead of this, followed by this, we could actually combine those together and do voila, there's a 2-octave A harmonic minor scale played like that. So one more time right there. And we're really just finding a way to navigate and combine or kind of merge those two shapes, that one and this one. And doing it like that allows us to kind of merge those two together. So let's do it again right here. We've got this fragment, and we've got this one. So let's merge those. You could actually do a little shift slide like this. And voila, there's 2 octaves of A harmonic minor right there. Basically, we could play around with this, and we could do like some extreme shifting, you know, off that high E string. But let's not do that. We could actually start, you know, after we did this, we could actually start on that A and do, and kind of tap our way up there again like that. And there's 2 octaves, you know, played off that D string. Like I said, I didn't really want to play off that B because we don't really have enough room to kind of move around. So that fingering was a little bit different than what we had down here. Because up here, that would be like that. A little differently kind of arranged. So that's basically what we did down here in your open position, but this other alternative, or kind of a variation, I guess, was like that. You could also transfer that down here. But that's where you start getting these big stretches in there like that. That's what I was kind of avoiding, you know, in the beginning when I was hitting those 1-octave fragments. I was trying to steer away from a lot of this kind of activity. And that's what you're going to find, you know, with some of the other fingerings and positions of harmonic minor, like this one. That fingering's a lot different than what we just looked at, you know, so far in this episode, because we've got these big stretches and shifts, you know, and it's very unusual, you know, especially if you're used to like pentatonic boxes and major scales and stuff. That's going to feel really weird. But by approaching it this way and looking at positions and these little fragments and then starting to kind of combine them, you can actually see how those kind of fingerings can happen. But you have to start somewhere, and that's why I usually start, you know, with my students on these smaller fragments and then start combining them together, doing stuff like that. And like I said, once you have a working knowledge of this, then you can start seeing like alternate routes and different ways of navigating like that. It's a little variation on the fingering, but it does kind of put your hand in a different position, and it's leading you kind of like in a different place, like toward a different lick or a bend or a slide or something. Now we're going to revisit octave linking, and I've shared this in other episodes on the channel. I don't know if I've actually shared this related to harmonic minor before, but this is a concept I picked up from Paul Gilbert, and this appears in a lot of his instructional, you know, and educational material. And what we're going to do here is basically play 6 notes of A harmonic minor, but we're going to be avoiding the 7th, so there's no 7th here. And we're just going to play A, B, C, D, E, F, and then jump to the next octave and do it again like this. So there's your A, B, C, D, E, F, and then you're going to basically, you know, skip the 7th and go to the next A and do it again like this. Right? Because it's the same thing, just 6 notes, you know, repeated in 3 different octaves. Here, here, and here. So basically what we're doing now is we're noticing what we have without that 7th, without that G sharp. And then you can start to decide, like, well, how do I want to pick that up? You know, you could basically look at the skeleton of that scale here, and you could definitely grab G sharp right there on the G or the D string, right? And you could do a shift slide right there into the next A. And you could do the same thing right there, like that. You could tap it or slide it, whatever you want to do. But now we're completing and making that, you know, little fragment of a scale into harmonic minor by adding that G sharp this way. Now we could also do that G sharp a different way. We could actually, cruise up to that F note with your pinky right there, like that. And then right there, you're going to shift slide into G sharp on the A string. And that's going to set up that stretchy, shape, but like this. Right? And you could do it again, because now we're ready for A. And then shift slide that F right there to G sharp on the G string now. And then do it again. Like that. So once you've kind of uncovered that and started connecting and linking those octaves together and transforming that into harmonic minor, you could start making sequences and licks and stuff. So I wanted to end here with like a lick that definitely can kind of help you understand like how you can actually use this in music. It's more than just an exercise or a scale workout. You could do stuff like this. And there I basically just kind of made my way down, those different positions, and I'm kind of almost doing like an Yngwie kind of bend, like that, and then, right? And we're just making our way down to that G sharp, and then we're gonna bend that again. So we started with that G sharp bend, come down, and then bend that G sharp again right there. Just a half step up to that A. And then do that same kind of, legato sequence. And then shift down to that G sharp right there. And then do that G sharp bend again right there on the D string. And then finally, so really slow. It's going to wrap this episode of Scales and Tales with Mastering Harmonic Minor, and we're definitely not done here. If you combine this episode, or lesson with the one that I made back in October, you have plenty of things to kind of use and practice and think about as far as approaching this scale. I'm going to follow this with a chord play episode where we're going to talk about chords, from harmonic minor. We're going to harmonize the scale, look at chord progressions and static chords that really bring out, the sound of the scale or the tonality. Famous songs and guitarists that are known for using the sound, and really, get your hands dirty. And the reason I'm kind of going slow here is it's really easy to get lost or confused with this material. It seems like the deeper or further you go into theory and really revealing some of these secrets and the nuts and bolts as far as music, it's really easy to get confused or turned around, or maybe, encounter something and you're like, I don't understand what this is or why I'm learning this. But over time, I think definitely, kind of taking small steps, reviewing, take another couple steps and then review, and you're kind of making this, gradual push toward your goal. I think that's a better strategy than just diving in the deep end with no information or knowledge as far as what you're trying to do. If you do that, you're definitely going to get lost. You're definitely going to get confused and frustrated, and you very well may never dive in again just because you're so scared or kind of confused about what you discovered or uncovered. So I think there's a gradual, kind of slow way to approach this, and I think that's the best way. There might be some educators out there that disagree, but as far as my students and also for myself, that has been the best way, because you're gradually kind of picking up this information. The next thing you know, you have a firm, handle on it. You can actually use it, recall it, and you actually know what you're doing because you're thinking about what you're playing instead of just running your fingers around the fretboard. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to my lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.